Peter McKinnon picked a peck of pickled peppers with PolarPro and made a VND, and this is the one, the VND with Peter McKinnon by PolarPro.
Great job.
ND filters may not be something that a photographer uses on a daily basis, but ND for us video makers is an essential piece of our kit. And using a variable ND filter is a really great way to have everything that you need when shooting video, so you don't need to have a bunch of different filters. Brief disclaimer before we get going, I am the host of the Golden Hour podcast, which is brought to you by PolarPro. They did not pay me, however, to do anything with this variable ND filter, so I just wanted to let you guys know that up front before we start this review. When I was first starting out shooting video, I would just jack my shutter up, and that's how I would expose when I was shooting outside. Usually when you're shooting with a wide open aperture, it's just too bright to shoot outdoors. So I would just change my shutter speed to like 1/4000th of a second, and that would essentially fix my exposure problems. But the real problem with doing that is you get so much motion jitteriness. This is a rule that comes from cinematography, and it's something that has been around for a long time. The 180-degree shutter rule. Essentially what that means is when you're shooting 24 frames per second, your shutter speed needs to be locked at 1/50th or 1/48th of a second. We say 150 because a lot of these cameras actually don't go to a proper 1/48, so 50 is close enough. So the only real solution to get this blurry depth of field as you're seeing right now is to put an ND filter on your camera, because even when your ISO is at 100, when you're wide open on your lens, typically it's just way too bright. I mean, here in sunny California, it is super bright, so we have to slap on some ND. Up until Peter McKinnon, a lot of the big vloggers would just crank their shutter speed to get exposure, but Peter McKinnon did something that a lot of other people didn't do. He upped the production value of a vlog and actually shot at a 180-degree shutter angle. Now the best way to do this is to put on different ND for different settings, but the problem with that is you've got a ton of ND filters just hanging around all the time, and when you're shooting a vlog, speed is of the essence. So the variable ND is really the best option for vloggers. Peter ran into this issue that I've also run into several times with variable NDs, and that is two things. Number one, they're super big, they're chunky, they're huge, massive filters that go on top of your already big lens. In his case, the 1DX with the 16-35 is a huge setup, and putting another slab of glass on there just isn't very practical. The second issue that you run into with variable ND that Peter was having issues with is the fact that there's no hard stops from the beginning to the end of the ND strength. And the problem with that is if you overspin the ND thing, you get like this vignette kind of effect, and it looks really messy and really bad. I've actually seen it in some of Peter's videos, and I'm sure he doesn't like it. So PolarPro worked with Peter McKinnon to create a solution to those problems with the PolarPro VND.
Peter McKinnon picked a peck of pickled peppers.
The PolarPro VNDs come in 2 strengths and 3 thread sizes, 2 to 5 stops and 6 to 9 stops, which if you're used to the old standard of ND numbers, that's 0.6 to 1.2-ish and 1.8 to 2.7-ish. Oh, that's actually straight on. I say that because I actually am confused by PolarPro's naming structure here. I grew up using the 0.3, 0.6 format. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then just ignore this, but I don't know. I think there's a lot of other video people out there who know what I'm talking about. As you can see, I actually relabeled these with a Sharpie marker, and I did it wrong the first time, so I had to cross it out and do it again. I'm so sorry, PolarPro, for ruining your packaging, which, by the way, is outstanding. Now, the thing that is amazing about this VND is that it's literally no bigger than a standard ND filter. And if this is totally new to you, just know that this is kind of a miracle. The fact that this is literally the same size as just a standard ND is really unheard of. Every other VND that I've ever tried has been at least 2 to 3 times larger, thicker, chunkier than a standard ND filter. And the fact that the engineers were able to create this and make it so tiny is amazing. The second thing that PolarPro has done to make this filter so incredible is the hard stops on both ends of the spectrum. When I go to 6, it completely stops, completely a hard lock. And then when I go to 9, boom, another nice clicky stop. This is so important because on other VNDs, when you go to the end, it continues to turn, giving you that weird vignette that I mentioned earlier. So this completely prevents you from having that kind of vignetting look that you get with a VND. I think overall the VND from Peter McKinnon picked a pickup peppers with PolarPro and the VND is the best option if you want kind of the all-around ND filter set when you're shooting. Now the price on these VNDs is a little high at $249 for the 2 to 5 stop and the 6 to 9 being $299 for all filter sizes. If you've never bought a VND before, then this definitely looks like a crazy price point, but believe me, VNDs are very expensive, especially the ones that are good, that don't have color shift, and these are the best ones that I've ever tried. And again, just like I said, they're super small and have the hard stops. Not to mention the packaging is amazing, and they include this nice little defender that can go over the filter while it's on your camera. It makes a nice seamless kit. What do you guys think? Do you think it's cool that Peter McKinnon picked a pack of pickled peppers with PolarPro to make this VND? Comment below and let us know your thoughts. And hit that subscribe button, enable bell notifications to see all the videos that we have on this channel. Once again, I'm Dave Mays. This is a PolarPro filter that was not paid for by PolarPro, but I do get paid by PolarPro to do the Golden Hour podcast. No affiliation with the VND. See you next time.